Well, welcome everyone. So pleased we could all gather and remember our dear friend and mother and grandmother and great-grandmother, Genevieve. For those of you who aren't regularly involved with Friends, the way that we do Meeting for Worship is that when I'm done talking, we'll sit in silence and we welcome people speaking into the silence as you are moved. If you want to share something about Genevieve or what your thoughts or prayers are. And please, we just ask that you leave a little bit of time in between speakers so that we can absorb the messages. And when it feels like we've had a chance to worship together and say what we want to say, then I will close meeting. Typically, we do that with a handshake. And I think I'll just say that we're closing meeting and we can do a virtual handshake together. I want to share, before we start, just a little bit about a couple of photos that Jean and Christy sent. Whoops, I don't know what happened there. There we go. I'm hoping you can see that. It's a lovely picture of Genevieve that Jean Graham took when we were celebrating her birthday one year. And then the picture on the right was drawn by Sasha, her granddaughter, Christy's daughter, when Genevieve was in hospice and the family was gathered around her. And those of us who spent time with Genevieve, and sometimes we would gather in her room at her home, Sasha's artwork was everywhere, and the other grandkids as well, and great grandkids. And so we know that Genevieve would have loved this photo. This drawing of her as the family was loving on her in her final day. Genevieve was born in Seattle, Washington on May 3rd, 1934. Her family moved to McAllen, Texas when she was 8, and she spent the rest of her life in Texas, in San Antonio and Austin. She's survived by her 5 children who loved her very much, their respective spouses, 7 grandchildren, and 10 great-grandchildren. Genevieve became a member of Friends Meeting of Austin in September 1999. She was always growing in the spirit, and we are grateful for her presence among us. So now we can settle into silence, and I'm gonna stop sharing so that we can see and hear each other better.
Genevieve was wise, kind, and empathic. She seemed to understand the of a first-time visitor to meeting, like she was already walking a mile in his shoes while she was meeting him. Genevieve and I worked together with others on issues we about, especially in prison ministry at a federal correctional institution. As inmates were released, the numbers of prisoners in our group would diminish. To keep the numbers up, we would send letters reminding them of the next worship. Genevieve and I took turns mailing reminders. Each reminder had an inspiring quote. My letters were typed, hers were handwritten. Each time Genevieve gave me a copy of what she sent to the Bastrop prisoners, I would admire the beauty of her handwriting and then also appreciate her message. One of these messages was, I've posted the following Bible verse on my bathroom mirror to use as a standard as I review my day, to test my thoughts and actions, to discern whether they're coming from the spirit or from the ego. And it's Galatians 5:22. The fruit of the spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and self-control.
Genevieve was practical with being wise. Once she and I were the two going to Bastrop to the prison, and we had a flat tire. AAA wasn't going to come for over an hour because it was Friday night. So she talked me through changing the tire. And then when we got to the prison late, she soothed the good sister who was the chaplain on duty, who was indignant about our being late. And we got in and were able to do our meeting for worship.
And I thought I could talk. I don't know if I can. In 1993, when I was going through my divorce, my mother one of the things that she had so highly encouraged me during that time was to embrace the grieving right now, not to hold it back, not to wait a year or two or never, to embrace it, to listen to its beauty and wisdom. And as I've gone through that process, learning and embracing grieving has been exceptionally healing for me throughout my life, and especially when I had already started really working on healing work of my past, which included males in my life. And so it was very, very beneficial, and it kept me moving forward that way. It also was that support for me with the times that I've lost dear female friends. And Mama, for me, we just could be together and do things that needed to get done. And she was just there for me and present. She was kind of funny for many years of always having the other side of things. I don't know if anyone else noticed that. And it was kind of tough for me. And I kind of had to keep coming back to her and saying, you know, I just would really like it if you would say, oh, how cool. Instead of, oh, but you could have done. So but you know what? What I saw was that she listened to me over all those years. She kept letting me be there and opening up to that and letting it occur. And she changed. She really lived this walk of always growing, always not only nurturing her family, nurturing herself, and by nurturing herself, she provided this role model for us to express gratitude, gratefulness, thankfulness. And the one last thing I wanted to mention was that fall in '93. Basically, the church home that I had was not supportive for me anymore. And I went to the Quaker meeting on Thanksgiving. And it was just so nurturing and holding. And I was so glad that she had this space to be in, and that I could be there when it was appropriate for me. And I always was so grateful that she had found this way of community and support and spiritualism. So I am grateful for all the Quakers and all of your support and all your love for her over the years, because it was so helpful and beneficial and good for you, everyone. So I had to go get a Kleenex. Thank you.
Having Genevieve as a friend has been a friend with a capital F and a small f has been an incredible blessing to me. And when I sit and think about her and I look at that picture of her, I'm reminded that she had an incredibly attentive presence. The older I get, the more I realize how rare it is to find someone who truly can listen well. And Genevieve had that gift and nurtured it in herself and I think in others by her example. And she was so wise. She would listen and she would hear things in a way and reflect things back in our conversation that just always struck me, how much wisdom and grace there was in what she shared and how she went through her life. She also had a wonderful dry sense of humor and could come out with such right to the point, funny statements. She was pragmatic, as I think Mary shared, and pragmatically wise, I think is a lovely way that you said that. I'm so grateful. And the other thing that I remember so well is when I think of Genevieve, I think of all the years that she was with us in Friends Meeting, how many little astonishingly beautiful and simple bouquets appeared for events, for just a little touch on the book table on Sunday, maybe not for an event, and just her gift of sharing that natural beauty is something else that I will cherish in my memories of her. So I'm very grateful for her presence in my life.
There are many images that I carry with me of Genevieve now that she's passed on. And I just wanted to share two simple ones with you. One is an image of a dream catcher that she made for me. She carefully wove together this lovely dream catcher out of natural materials. And I have it hanging over my bed to catch my dreams. But also, it makes me think of Genevieve and the mystery of life and death. And the other image is from when we would gather in her little room. And we were surrounded by all the drawings and all the little aspects of quotidian life and spiritual life. And I always felt like I was in a boat of care, just felt like I was in a little vessel. So I wanted to share that with you.
I hesitate to break the silence to say this, since what I have to share, I think, has been brought to us by others who have shared this morning. But there are two things that I think about. I had never really thought about Genevieve as being a deep listener, but I remember the joy of serving with her on clearness committees and things. She was always very soft spoken, but when she said something, it was always just right there. I mean, and I'm glad that people brought up the point about deep listening, because you can only do that by being at that place where you can listen at that very deep level. But whenever she had something to say, it was always spot on, and it's just like, oh, well, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And she had such a gift of that, and it was never in your face. It was just kind of organic, that it just flowed, that this was the next step. And everybody went, well, duh, yeah. And I'm struck by what Mary Ellen was sharing about the flowers and stuff. I first met Genevieve back in the mid-70s when she had a flower shop over near the university. A friend of mine lived in the house over the shop, and whenever I went to visit her, we would often go down and visit with Genevieve. And so it was a great joy to me, years and years later, when she showed up at the door of a Friends Meeting of Austin, because she was just so incredibly delightful. But talking about the arrangements, when Bill and I got married back in 1998, she was on our arrangements committee. And one of the things that she really wanted to do was she wanted to work on the arrangements for the meeting for worship. And she and Bill talked about things, and they may have even gone to nurseries and stuff and looked at stuff, because they brought in a lot of stuff that's like, really? Okay. But the thing that struck me about her care for us on that morning is that on the way to the Unitarian Church for the meeting for worship that day, she stopped and picked a bunch of wildflowers, and she brought them to the church and put them in a container. And all the chairs in the meeting room were arranged in a circle. And this container of wildflowers just went right down in the middle of the circle. And it was kind of the focal point of the meeting space. And I'll always remember that. And that was just such a gift. But to think about stopping along the way like she did, and just bringing something in that beautiful, and it didn't overpower the space, but it just added so much to it. And we were very blessed and grateful to have her part of our arrangements committee.
I was blessed to I was blessed to have Genevieve in a group called Friendly Sixes, probably since the middle 90s. The Friendly Sixes, for you that don't know, is it's a supper club where we met once a month in a small group, and so you can hear me okay. But one of the key things is there's always a query, and the host of the group was responsible for the query, and some of these queries got we tried to get subjects that were deep or were significant, and so I don't feel like I can share a lot of the queries with you, but Genevieve was very much a part of it, and so as a result, I got to know Genevieve on a deeper level than maybe some people could, including her, how she grew up, and parents, grandparents, wins, losses, a very deep connection, and I was so privileged to be a part of a group with her in it. She was kind of the elder of the group. Nobody was older than Genevieve, although some of us are starting to get in the elder position now. But she always had the wisdom and the patience and the listening to to make that process meaningful for the rest of us. And I was so glad to be a participant of that. And she could make some wicked green beans too. You know, that was definitely a part of it. It has social aspect to it. Genevieve was a single member, so she had to drive. It was a little bit of a drive for her. She was lived out. Her trailer was, I guess, kind of rural, and we didn't go to her place that often, but it was such a joy going out there, seeing the chickens. You know, we don't get to see chickens every day in Austin, and it was so much fun. And I'm going to deeply miss Genevieve. She had just because of difficulty, she dropped out of the group a couple of years ago, and the group has gone through some changes, and it's different. It's different without Genevieve, and I'm going to miss her a great deal.
My name's Mary Jo, and I was a member of the Friendly Sixes group that Larry was talking about for many, many years, and with Genevieve. And I was thinking that it was, I'm not sure, 15, at least 15 years, maybe 20, but I think it was somewhere in there. Anyway, we met once a month, and yeah, she was very, she was just very wise. And it seemed like whatever she said would resonate with me, and I would really appreciate it. And she was so kind and present. Just everything that everyone's described about her was what we had the privilege of seeing as well. And she was just a real gift in my life. And I I guess I consider her truly a wise woman. Like, she made the transition, to becoming a crone or a wise woman, and kind of, I don't know, to me, like the hero's journey, and that she did it for a woman, and it was really great. And I just celebrate her life, and it was just, she's a real blessing to everybody, I think, that she came in contact with, but certainly to me. Thanks.
I had not seen Genevieve for years and years now, and my memory is not what I would like it to be. And before the meeting today, I was trying to pull up a picture of her in my mind, and then seeing the photograph that was shared, it was like a little more a sense of, oh yes. But then when Sharon started talking about her mom, it was like, there's Genevieve. That facial expression, that little turn of the head, that little mannerism, it was like, oh my gosh, I remember, I remember, uh, and how amazing what carries on. Um, and you know, there is that expression in Quakerism, a weighty friend, a weighty friend, and it's one of those expressions where it's not always easy to pin down. But I think Genevieve was one of those because there was no pretense. And as Warren was saying, she's just always right there. And she was a steadying presence, really foundational to the meeting in so many ways. And it was good to see her again today in those movements of the head that somehow we pass along.
I began attending the meeting in 2003, and for a long time I would just be in the meeting and there were people present, and I enjoyed the worship time, but I didn't really get to know many people. And then I got asked to be on a committee for adult religious education that Genevieve was on. So I began to get to know her. And the image I always think of for her is a quiet soul and gentle soul, but with this little glint in her eye and a chuckle kind of in the background there, that after we go through a meeting, she would just come out with a little zinger that was right on track and kind of would bring us all back to the present moment. And Genevieve, maybe more than most anybody I can think of, also makes me think of the Tao Te Ching, the ancient document attributed to Lao Tzu. And the opening verse goes, "The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The nameless is the beginning of heaven and earth. The named is the mother of 10,000 things." It goes on about the mystery of this universe that we inhabit. And somehow I kind of think of her as a Taoist master. She kind of kept everything in that presence and in that silence that allowed for the mystery. And she just was present, very, very present in my mind. And I too will miss her gentle spirit.
coming to Boston meeting in 1999, Genevieve seemed like a central person to me. And she was obviously a seasoned friend. Having been a friend for a long time, I recognized that in her, but she was really quiet. And I guess I knew her best through the Bastrop worship group, and the kind of worship that we experienced there, and the kind of fellowship that we've experienced before and after in the car and also at dinner, was a very special thing for me in terms of coming into this meeting. And then Genevieve and I became grandparents at the same time. We have at least one grandchild that's born almost exactly on the same day. And so it was really fun to have that be the case. She being the elder, I always look to her as in the grandparenting of things, and we would share information about the tiny babies and then the 3-year-olds and then on up. So I was so happy to share that with her. I've missed her greatly since she hasn't attended a meeting. And I think I think even without her being there, there was a sense that she inhabited the meeting, that she was still with us, and that I guess each of us probably carries a little bit of her in us, having known her, and therefore, and her kids certainly do that, and kids and grandkids and great grandkids, and it just seems like there was a brightness about her in her quiet, that and that twinkle in the eye, and you really, just seems like she's still among us.
Genevieve, did you mute us?
Yeah.
No. Describing Genevieve as a weighty friend made me do a kind of a double take, because she certainly was a weighty friend in the best senses of the word, but it didn't seem to fit somehow. Is that Genevieve's presence brought light in the sense of the light, and light in the sense of a lightness of presence, a cheerfulness, a comfort, a reassurance. That's a special kind of, ironically to say, weightiness, that a person whose presence is like that keeps a meeting, on an even keel in a way. And we'll miss that.
I'm one of Genevieve's daughters. And I had the privilege of being supported by her in so many different times and activities. One particular one that I know meant as much to me as it did to her was when I was asked to be a youth education leader at Unity Church to teach Sunday school. And the thought was completely overwhelming. And I talked to her, and we both realized that we would be willing to do it if we worked together as a team. Instead of being Sunday school leader, we would be leaders together in one particular class. And she also stipulated it would work for her if we did it every other week. And I thought, what a brilliant idea. Not one that was being circulated around, not one that was requested, but one that made sense in terms of accomplishing the goal of putting together a Sunday school class with heart and soul and thought and time and creativity. And so I said to the director, said, this is what we can do, what we're willing to do. She said, because we had already been working as a pair. She said, if that's what it takes to keep you and keep you doing the job that you're doing, I accept. She accepted. And we worked together for several years doing just that. And when the director passed and I became the new director, I put that concept in motion so that other people who were volunteering could volunteer and could actually contribute without committing to something that took too much energy and too much effort, and therefore became a drain on them and non-productive to the whole system. And if it hadn't been for Mom, I would never have thought to go outside that box. And it created a tremendous amount of opportunity because it gave twice as many people the opportunity to participate in that experience. And I thank her. I thank her for participating in that particular experience and so many others where she wanted to share, but didn't want to be the leader. She wanted to be a team player. And that's what she did for me. And I'm grateful.
I'm Nicole. I'm one of Genevieve's granddaughters, and I am so grateful for the example that she set for me and for our family, and just the way that she led, and the way she showed us how to live. And I loved the analogy of her bedroom being a gentle rocking boat. As I'm going through the phase of life where I have the raucous, out of control boat of having young children, I imagine that hers was maybe even more raucous in the situation that she went through with young children. And to see her journey from that raucous boat tossed to the waves to the gentle boat that she created for herself, and the way that she lived throughout her life and the way that she grew, is so inspiring to me. And I'm so grateful for her influence in my life. In the 90s, I was often with her at the Friends meeting there, and it was so calming in my life, and such a peaceful memory of that time. And with all the other things happening in my life, including times when I would be staying the night with my grandmother, and not intending to actually stay the night there, but actually intending to go out and get into trouble. She called me out on it, and I denied it, but I have such gratitude for the way that she reacted to it, and the way that she showed me how to live. The next time I was intending to do the same kind of nonsense, the early bird that she was didn't go to sleep that night. And I couldn't get away with what I wanted to get away with. And she never called me out and never said, I know that you're not telling the truth. She never did any of that, but yet she kept me safe in the way that she could. And she showed how much she was willing to do and how much she loved me. And she just did that throughout her life for all of us, and so grateful for her.
Hi, I am Monet, one of her granddaughters as well. And Nicole is my sister. And one of the memories that I hold dear, and just anytime I think about grandma, that always pops up, is I was in college and extraordinarily busy, doing lots of things all at once and burning the candle at both ends. And she wrote me a postcard because I was never catchable by phone, and we never really visited on the phone much anyway. She didn't really care for the phone. She liked writing, and I always loved getting her postcards and her notes just because her writing was so beautiful, and it was almost like artwork. And but I got a postcard, and one of the lines in it was, "Monet, don't forget to stop and smell the roses." And I was like, wow, Grandma, that's kind of cliche. Yeah, don't forget to smell the roses, blah, blah. And it's just always stuck with me. And it's one of those things that I always come back to. And it's so interesting how she always had those one-liners, just like the small little tidbits that you could hold on to versus, you know, big, long, lengthy conversation. And I, in the grieving process, I had been feeling guilty about feeling like I hadn't spent enough time, or that we didn't have that type of close relationship just because we weren't in the same location together. So we weren't visiting, you know, in person all the time. And I realized that that wasn't necessary. You know, she is always with us, and she's always been with me. I mean, whether she was alive here on this earth, or if she had passed on, you know, there will always be that part of her inside of everyone that she has blessed and touched. And just even like that one line, "Don't forget to smell the roses," how as I have matured and gone through life more, those same words mean different things now to me. And it's like a gift that she keeps giving, because as I get older, I understand things differently. And if I go through a different situation, it comes across differently in every situation that I'm in a deeper way. And so I'm just very grateful that I was blessed to know her.
Thank you, friends, for this wonderfully rich time together. I'm so grateful that some of Genevieve's family could join us, and we do remember you visiting with us. And Nicole, I especially remember you helping out in the garden house, and it's lovely that you all joined us, and it's so nice to see friends that maybe we haven't seen for a while join as well. As we draw our worship to a close, we are welcome to stay on and visit a little bit if you'd like to. But I thank you for this lovely time of celebrating Genevieve, who is indeed among us now and always. So thank you. And here's our virtual handshake of ending meeting. So you're free to, people are free to leave, or if you want to stay and visit. And Alan, it's lovely to see you, and Melody, and did
Shall I turn the recording off now?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.